Official leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, sat down last week with our global anchor, Donna Friesen. From how, given the chance, he'd push through an Alberta-British Columbia pipeline to the aftermath of party deserters, here's that interview.
Mr. Poilievre, good to see you. Thanks for taking time with us today.
Likewise, and Merry Christmas to you.
Thanks. You too. 2025, let's talk about it. It hasn't been the easiest year for you. The Conservatives did receive 41% of the popular vote in the last election. You have a lot of loyal support right across this country, which I'm sure you're very proud of. But you didn't win the election, and you didn't win your own seat. That would be a big blow to a lot of people in your position. Have you reflected on what went wrong?
Well, I have reflected, and you're right, it is a big blow to a lot of people who voted for, in record numbers actually, voted for affordable food, affordable homes, safer streets after 10 years of inflation and rising crime. And so we always reflect on how we can continue to inspire those 8.3 million people, a record number, who voted for us, but how we can inspire even more. And so my message for the year to come will be one of hope. I think people desperately need hope. Hope that they can afford groceries, hope they can afford homes. And many have put hope in me in the past, but we have to keep inspiring them so that more will do so in the future.
What I meant with respect was a big blow to you personally. Have you reflected on what went wrong in the campaign, in your own leadership?
Well, yes, I have reflected, and obviously, I think my goal and one of the adjustments that we need to make is that people know that I'm a fighter, but they need to know what I'm fighting for and who I'm fighting for.
In the lead up to the last election, you were way ahead in the polls, if we believe the polls. You were on your way to becoming Prime Minister when Justin Trudeau was still around. When he left and a new Liberal leader came on the scene, your lead in the polls began to diminish to the point where, as we said, you lost the election. So something happened in that time, and you can argue that more Canadians put their faith in Mark Carney as a leader than in you.
Well, what happened was that we got a record number of votes, and the highest share of vote we've got since 1988.
I know you keep saying that, but I understand that.
It happens to be true.
Yes, but I'm trying to move, if you don't mind, I'm trying to move a little bit beyond that to say, how do you broaden the tent now? You were fighting for, I think, a lot of the same things you were fighting for before, and as I said, you have a lot of very loyal support. But if you want to take it to the next level, if you're still leader when the next election is held, how do you change that equation?
Well, my plan is affordability, affordability, affordability. That is the single biggest issue facing Canadians after 10 years of Liberal inflation. So how do we take it to the next level? We go to more people and tell them that we're going to cut back on the inflationary deficit so that dollars go further. We make clear that we're going to cut taxes on work, investment, energy, and home building so that people bring home more and they pay less. We're also going to talk a lot, I've said affordability, but there's also the issue of crime. I mean, 10 years of catch and release has left Canadians endangered. We're going to repeal catch and release, lock up the criminals, and make it so people feel safe again in their communities. There's immigration. We'll be talking about the fact that immigration is still out of control, and the government is allowing criminals and false refugee claimants to come in and undermine our security and drain our taxpayers. So those are all issues that we need to talk about in order to broaden our tent and win the support of Canadians for an affordable, safe Canada under a Conservative government.
Is it possible that in the last election, many Canadians just thought you weren't the man for the moment, and that it's your leadership that's the issue?
Well, my leadership got us a record number of votes. I know you don't like me
No, you said it. I think that's the fourth time.
It is a fact, though, right? And I think we led on all the issues. We led on fighting inflation, opposing carbon taxes, unblocking our resources,
and you've
treating
accused
addiction.
The Liberals of stealing your ideas.
Not quite. I want them to steal my ideas. I would say that they have stolen
the carbon tax. That was the first thing that Mark Carney axed,
and then,
as you wanted.
Right. He's stealing my words, but not the deeds. So a couple of things. One, I'm glad that Danielle Smith forced Mr. Carney to flip-flop on the threatened Liberal production cuts to the oil and gas sector and their costly regulations on the electricity sector. Mr. Carney has not committed to building a pipeline. He opposed the pipeline in question. He testified against the pipeline in question in a parliamentary committee in 2021, and of course the Liberal government.
He wasn't in when? He wasn't
in 2021. I can give you the
Prime
video.
Minister then. He's
Right.
the Prime Minister now.
Right. But he was testifying.
So are you suggesting that? I know you suggest that he's doing this. It's disingenuous. This deal he has signed, the memorandum of understanding with Alberta. You don't think it's real?
That's correct, and I'll give you the background. He opposed the pipeline. He testified before a parliamentary committee against that same pipeline. The Liberal government killed that same pipeline in 2016, and numerous Liberal members of the present caucus have already made public social media posts saying it will never happen. So he understands that pipelines are very popular, so he wants to pretend he supports one until after the next election while telling people that he won't ever build one.
And
I think we need
Danielle Smith, the Conservative Premier of Alberta, seems very happy with the potential of another pipeline under Mark Carney.
Well, I want to see the reality, and she said that under my leadership we'd be well on the way to getting the pipeline done.
Right, but
she
you
just
didn't
said
win
that
the
the
election.
other day. Well, that's why I need to win the next one, and then we can actually get some projects done, because this pipeline will be fantastic when it happens under a Conservative government. $30 billion a year in overseas exports, less dependence on the Americans, about $1,800 in benefits per family per year, and a stronger Canadian dollar, which will make our lives more affordable to buy homes and food. And
why
those are the
do you
things that we'll
think
do.
that you would get a pipeline built faster? What would you do to make that happen?
Get out of the way, because that's all that needs to happen right now. These
Get out of the
pipelines-
way of what?
The pipeline construction. So the federal government is the only level of government that needs to approve the pipeline. Under our Constitution, Section 92, the federal government has exclusive jurisdiction to approve or reject an interprovincial pipeline. The reason it doesn't happen, even though it's wildly profitable and popular, is that there is no federal permit to build it, and the previously approved pipeline was then canceled by this Liberal government in 2016. So if we get the government out of the way, approve a right-of-way, the private sector can then go ahead and build a pipeline from Hardisty, Alberta to the coast. And so all we really need to do is get the Prime Minister out of the way, because he is the only one who has the authority to approve or reject
What
one.
about the duty to consult with Indigenous leaders?
We should do that,
You would do that?
of course.
And what if after those consultations, the answer is still no?
Well, the answer is given by the Prime Minister. And I am running...
I'm saying if the Indigenous leaders say no.
that I will thank them for their input, and at the end of the day, the Prime Minister has to decide. And my decision, and I'm telling Canadians before the election so they can vote on it, is I will approve a pipeline. Nobody has a veto. Not under our Constitution. There's a duty to consult.
There's a duty to
there's
consult,
no
but if
duty-
the answer is after the consultations, we don't want this, it won't matter to you.
It's actually, first of all, I wouldn't say it would matter. I would go ahead with the pipeline, and I would also clarify that when the Liberals killed this pipeline last time, in 2016, 75% of Indigenous communities along the path supported it. They overrode and overpowered those First Nations communities. And I think it's a really unfortunate stereotype to say that First Nations are against pipelines when the evidence is the overwhelming majority of them support it, although I think the media sometimes tries to stereotype that they're all against it.
I
That's
think
not
at the
true.
latest Assembly of First Nations meeting, there's a unanimous vote in supporting the Pacific Northwest Coast Indigenous leaders who don't want a pipeline.
Well, the last pipeline from northern Alberta to the Pacific had 75% of the First Nations communities along the route supporting it and benefiting from it. And we have these First Nations leaders in my own caucus who, for example, like Billy Morin, who is a former chief of the Inuk First Nations, and his community has been enriched because oil and gas has been allowed to expand. First Nations support oil and gas. Liberals and liberal elites often try to stereotype and stigmatize First Nations as being opposed to pipelines, but we need to get them built.
I think we should let Indigenous leaders who oppose it speak for themselves, first of all, but and there are those who do oppose it. Let me ask you about what's happened in your caucus recently in the last month. You've lost a couple of MPs. Two of them have crossed the floor. One is resigning. Does that send any signals to you about your leadership?
It sends a signal to me that the Prime Minister is trying to manipulate his way to the majority that Canadians voters denied him during the election.
I'm talking about Conservative MPs who left your caucus. I'm not asking about Mark Carney right now, but
I'll address them if you want me to.
Let me just read to you what one of them, Chris d'Entremont, said. He concluded after leaving the caucus, this is from his statement, that there is a better path forward than being under your leadership, and he wants to be part of leading solutions rather than opposing everything. And in an interview, he said being in caucus felt a lot of the time like being in a frat house rather than being in a serious political party. What do you make of that?
Well, what I make of it is I look at the words that he said about only weeks earlier about the Liberal government. He said that Mark Carney's grocery price inflation was, quote, inhumane, and that Mark Carney had broken his promise to be judged by the prices at the grocery store.
So you're happy he's gone?
And then he went against the words that he spoke and the voters who elected him for an affordable agenda. And then you have Mr. Ma, who said also that Mark Carney had an irresponsible deficit that was driving up the cost of living and making life more expensive for his constituents. And now they've chosen to help Mr. Carney add those costs on the backs of Canadians. I think at the end of the day, they should respect that their constituents voted for our Conservative plan for a more affordable and safe country, and that's what they should respect.
Okay, let's move on to another topic I want to ask you about, which is something that world leaders now have to deal with. Many of them are dealing with every day, and that is President Trump. He is a unpredictable leader. I think that's fair to say. People are not exactly sure if they're on solid ground when they're dealing with President Trump. If you were Prime Minister, do you think you would be able to have reached a deal with him on tariffs? And how would you feel sitting across the table from him, trying to renegotiate NAFTA? Imagine yourself in that room.
Well, I would feel a great responsibility to defend Canadian workers and consumers. And I would live out that responsibility by getting a fair deal for the Canadian people, the aim of which is to remove the unjustified American tariffs so that we can sell our goods into the U.S. market, in exchange for which what we offer is a good, reliable Canadian partner for minerals, for energy, for international security.
What would you do differently that Prime Minister Carney has not been able to accomplish? I'm asking you what you would do differently. You know, the Ontario Premier calls President Trump a tyrant. Is that language you would use?
I would focus on the business relationship. We got to get a deal at the end of the day. We're right next door to the biggest economic force in the history of the world. My focus is on getting a deal and the best possible arrangement for the Canadian people, defend our sovereignty, reopen markets.
That's Prime Minister Carney's objective too, to get a deal.
I'm sure it is,
so
but
it's about approach.
It.
It's about approach, I think, at this point. Let me ask you about a test of your leadership that's coming up at the end of January. How confident are you?
Very, because look, I'm the leader that will restore the promise of this country. I share the values and purpose of our party to make this a country where hard work is rewarded, food and homes are affordable, where streets are safe, and and I've been leading the debate on all of those issues.
Again, those are issues that we heard you campaign very strongly on in the last election. What I'm asking you now is, a year has passed. Almost a year. In January, it won't be quite a year since the last election. But do you feel you have to do something differently? Or it's the same messaging as the last campaign?
Well, like I said, I think people, they know that I'm a fighter, but they have to know what I'm fighting for, my why. Why is the most important question.
If you lose another MP to the Liberals, and I don't know if you know whether you will or not, because I'm not sure there's no clarity on that. It may or may not happen. You would then be facing a Liberal majority government, and you would be opposition leader for potentially another 3 years. How would that sit with you?
Well, I think it would sit very badly with the Canadian people who voted against a costly Liberal majority.
I'm asking you, would you hang on as leader?
I'm not giving up. I don't quit. And the people of our party, the welders, the waitresses, the plumbers and police officers, the soldiers and small business people, they're the ones who I'm fighting for, and I'm never going to stop fighting for them. They will decide with their democratic vote. We are not a party that makes decisions through backroom deals to form a costly majority government that nobody voted for. So I'm going to keep on fighting for the Canadian people and their chance to have an affordable, safe future as long as my party decides and the members and the grassroots people decide that I'm the one to champion them.
Thanks for taking time with us.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas once again.
Or as the National Post headline put it, Mark Carney fast-tracks the road to serfdom. I mean, you can't buy that kind of support, even if we do fund it. It's true, Conrad. It's true. It's true. Just the facts. Helen's here. It's got to be right. I've got to, yeah.
So that's it, Aaron. Like, share, subscribe. I really would appreciate your subscription. We're not going to try to sell you anything here. I'm not going to try to sell you a stupid sticker. Let's just learn about Canadian federal politics. That's it. Let's save our country. There's still time left. That's it. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll catch you in the next video. Again, I appreciate everybody that does subscribe and just watching the video. Share this with somebody if you really enjoyed it. We'll catch you in the next one. Ciao for now.